Hello, I'm Phil Archer. This is a very brief run through of current things happening in the W3C Data Activity. When I do talks, which I do quite a lot, I very often start with this diagram. This is figure 1 from Information Management, a Proposal, something that Tim Berners-Lee wrote and submitted to his boss on the 12th of March 1989. The important point about this diagram, apart from the historical interest, is just to show that right from day one, the web was designed to share information about experiments, the machines used in those experiments, the data produced by those experiments, the people, the documents, all sorts of things. The web was always designed as a way to link people and ideas and places and information and so on. It was never designed purely as a place to share pictures of cats, although of course that is perfectly possible. Today, of course, the web, the W3C, the organization that came out of this, has many different people in it. This is a group photo from a couple of years back. People here are concerned with obviously HTML and CSS and XML and accessibility and internationalization. All sorts of things that go on there. Security, privacy, publishing. It's a big thing now, and we have a lot of different areas that we cover. My area is simply the data activity and trying to make sure that we provide data to people in a way that is intelligent. And I use this picture to exemplify something that I see as a problem, which is that many people, when they put data on the web, they treat it as what I call a glorified USB stick. They'll publish metadata about the data, the description, the format, the date, any license that may apply or whatever, but the actual data itself is very often encapsulated and could just as easily be passed across on a USB stick. It may be a very big USB stick, but essentially it's a self-contained unit that is not itself making use of the web, and that's what we want to try and do something about. Imagine a street scene like this, and the different bits of information that may come from here. Meteorological information. Why was it snowing? How come we've got a little bit of cloud and blue sky in the background? Who lives here? What kind of jobs do they do? How easy was it for those people to get to work that morning after the small snow fall that happened overnight? What's that train right in the background? Is that running on time? Who operates it? How much does it cost to get on that train, and where's it going? All sorts of things that you can imagine information about just this picture, or indeed any other picture you care to have at your disposal. Data is everywhere, and the possibility of sharing that data is exciting. I was challenged actually at the end of 2014 by Amanda Smith at the Open Data Institute to try and explain in one sentence, preferably in a tweetable sentence, what linked data is. What is this thing W3C keeps talking about, linked data? And I came up with this as my best explanation, that linked data is a thing that uses the concepts and technologies of the web to describe the world. Now, the data activity is not only about linked data, it's not only about RDF, but clearly that's a big part of it, and so we do talk about that a little bit, and certainly any future work in that area would come under this particular part of the W3C organization. And some of the established, already existing things, just to give you a very incomplete list. Of course, we have RDF, which includes the JSON LD, JSON linked data, serialization of RDF. That's a very important way of describing links and things on the web. The data cube, the RDF data cube, that's how you do statistics on the web. There's an example there of linked data spaces and work that Sarvan Kapadisley does to take all sorts of data from different financial institutions and different statistical sets and puts them all together. We talk about provenance, organizations, data catalogs, and within that we should make a big mention of schema.org. Schema.org, which as you may know, it's a combination of the four major search engines, Google, Yandex, Bing and Yahoo, and they got together to try and provide a system that would at last help web masters, web designers, website owners to provide the kind of structured information that search engines need if they're going to provide their users with better search results, more accurate search results, and that's what schema.org is all about, and it's a big part of data on the web. So what are we doing today? What are we doing to try and make this web work as a way to connect people and ideas and places and everything else? Well, there's a whole bunch of work going on with more planned in the future. And as I say, it's not only about linked data. We're not specifically looking at that. In fact, we're trying very hard to use linked data within a broader set of activities. So one big example of that is the CSV on the web working group. CSV, one of the most common data formats ever. It's just simple rows and columns of data. But how do you describe that? And can you describe it in such a way that a machine can be, a general purpose machine, can take a CSV plus some metadata and do cool stuff with it? That's what the CSV and the web working group's about. They've almost finished defining their standards now. So what is the model? What is the data model for tabular data? And how do you provide metadata for that? How do you provide and how do you express that metadata, and how do you link the metadata to the CSV itself, using web technologies, of course? That's what that working group is about. Lots of links there to find out more. The Data on the Web Best Practices working group is trying to develop the overall ecosystem, so that when people share data on the web, it's done intelligently, so other people can find it. You get the maximum value from the data that you're sharing. You know that people are using your data, ideally, if they volunteer that information. People who might want to use your data can assess the quality. All sorts of different activities there about building the whole ecosystem. That's what we're trying to do there. One of the exciting things going on is a joint collaboration between W3C and our opposite numbers in the geospatial world, the Open Geospatial Consortium. Very similar organization in terms of size and membership and kind of way we work. So very pleased to be working with them, trying to make geospatial information systems more accessible to the web and vice versa. Their use case document is being published any day now. So that's an interesting sort of area where we're sort of combining different ways of thinking, shall we say. The RDF Data Shapes working group, that one is trying to bring validation to the world of RDF. One of the things about the web is it doesn't have a boundary. It goes on and on and on. And this, of course, is encapsulated in the RDF world, in the open world assumption. Just because I tell you that today it is raining, that doesn't stop you telling me, actually, no, it's snowing. Or it doesn't stop you saying something completely different. I don't know. But the whole point is that you can say, anyone can say anything about anything. Well, sometimes in an application, you need to be prescriptive. You need to say, no, if I'm going to take your data, it has to be like this. And that gives you the whole idea of validation and so on. So that's what the Data Shapes working group is trying to work towards. And we have the linked data platform, which is now finished its initial work. But that's about moving triples around, creating triples and moving them around without using the Sparkle query language. So those are some of the areas that we're currently working on. Linked Data Platform is already trying to get another follow-up group to come along. That's going to look at a number of issues, including access control. Of course, the data activity is just part of what goes on at W3C. Nearby, that is people doing stuff that's clearly closely related to what we're doing here. There's a web of things. A lot of things going on there, being led by Dave Raggett. That's the Internet of Things, plus the web of data, plus the web of services, and we call that the web of things. I mentioned the geospatial group. Well, geofencing API is a new one coming out. That's how your device can alert you to the fact that you've moved from one place to another, maybe moved from one room to another, or you've crossed an administrative boundary, or a geological boundary, whatever it may be. There's a boundary, and you have, using your mobile device, moved from one area to another, and your device will recognize that and will trigger something to happen. There's the automotive work, all sorts of in-car entertainment and systems and so on, and so it goes on. There's all sorts of work going on, which the data activity is, we hope, supporting, and they, of course, give us lots of use cases to deal with. What are we going to do next? We are considering, at the moment, no more than that at this stage, but considering working on licensing and rights statements, making, addressing some use cases that things like Creative Commons don't quite cover. How can we make licensing and rights statements machine readable, discoverable, interoperable? What do we need to do there? There's a lot of work going on in a standard called ODRL, and that may well be what comes out of that group. They've already done a lot of work in our community group system. They simply want to put that on to the full standards track to produce some formal standards. I'm very keen to make sure that the web of data is available to regular web developers. JSON LD is a big step in that direction. You use a JSON object and you handle it just like any other JSON object, but it just has this one line that links off to some more data that means that that information can be treated as RDF if you so choose. There's work around things like linked data fragments and Hydra, which is about API definition, and Facebook's new GraphQL, Graph Query Language. These things are all around making data easy to access by web developers who want JSON and they want to be able to do cool stuff with it. So we want to try and provide some interfaces between perhaps complex data structures and simple access routes that a regular web developer can use without having to know about what's going on behind the scenes. And always we're looking at ways to help businesses move from whatever technology they're using today, move on to the latest web technology. If you were starting your company today, would you use the technology you've already got, or would you start with something new? If you would start with something new, perhaps you want to move to an HTML5, an RDF-based system from an XML-based system, well, the steps have to be incremental. They have to provide benefit to your company each step you make. So how can we at W3C try and help that happen? Always looking for more things to look at. I'm very involved these days looking at scientific research data, trying to spend more time with researchers and work out what they need. Product data, manufacturing supply chain data. How do we handle that intelligently on the web? All that, of course, as well as government data. A lot of talk about open data and government data. So those are the kind of areas that we're looking at. In summary, if you want to use the web as a data platform rather than simply as a glorified USB stick, then first thing you need to do is to use persistent URIs as identifiers. You can identify people and places and experiments and research results and products and all sorts of stuff using a URI that needs to be designed and managed for persistence. Share data intelligently, follow the best practices for that, and always bear in mind the developers who at the end of the day are going to be using your data. That, very quickly, is a run through the data activity. If you want to find out more, these slides are available online at the URL you see. There are loads and loads of links in here to follow up. My email is there, my Twitter handle is there. Do please get in touch. I want to hear what you would like to see happening at W3C.